Hey everyone, welcome back to the Craftsman's Guide. Today we're going to be taking a look at this mountain encounter that I designed. I wanted to have a river with a bridge running over, that sort of thing, but going back into lockdown, I didn't have any resin, I didn't have any way to get any, so I had to make do. So I made this modular board using a technique with glue and toilet paper. I'm going to show you guys how to do it. This is the first time I ever did it, so I learned a lot and I can't wait to show you guys. Let's get to it. Woo-ah!
We're going to kick this build off by marking out the areas you want for the cliffs. I'm going to rush through these a little bit because I've got plenty of videos on my channel which already explain how to build these. I'm going to put those up right here. But for now, grab your pieces, stack them until they look good, glue them down, and then begin to carve them into shape. Using the butter knife technique to get that stone texture, and then run it over with an aluminium bowl. When you're satisfied, grab your PVA, a paintbrush, and then lather the areas you want flocking and stones to be laid down. I like to keep the flocking to the edges to simulate fallen stone and sort of carve out a path. While that's drying, let's begin work on the bridge. I measured out the area using a bit of scrap foam and then applied some edge guards for the bridge. For detail's sake, I carved a few slopes in the handrails, and then moved on to adding some detail, making it look like some stone helmets or heads were glued to the edges, then a few rails and blocks to top it off. I went in with a pencil and just grooved in some stonework and some faces into the stone. And always, texture with the tinfoil bowl. As always, I wanted this to be modular, so I added some magnets to the bridge. It just gave it a bit more strength. Then, we moved on to Modge Podge. Make sure you coat every surface in this. When it's dried, lay down a grey base coat, very heavily brushing this on. When that's dry, add a little bit of detail to the wood, particular stones, as well as a light brushing over all of it to give it a dirty look. Then pulling out the trusty tan, I brushed over all the stone to give it highlights, and then washed them down with a black wash. This really highlights the details in the stonework, especially once you dry brush a little bit of white on all the edges. I added a little bit of dirt texture with the brown. When all the paints are dry, grab your PVA and go around the areas you think that a forest flocking would look good. I mostly stuck to the edges, and then used the brush to clear a path. Add a little grass tufts, and then grab the twigs which I liberated from someone's front yard, cut them down to size, and with a little bit of PVA, stuck them into the foam. This is the first time I used twigs as trees, and in this setting, I think it looked really good. And now, we move on to the river. I began by grabbing a board and marking out where I think the stones and the edges should be. Found an old salsa jar, added 50% PVA, 50% water, and put it down on the board. Then I laid tissue paper down one at a time, then brushed over the mixture again. I repeated this 4 or 5 times until the toilet paper began to lose its texture. Then taking a brush, I gently pushed the tissue paper to make waves, sort of creating a perimeter of where the land would be. And in between, I pushed in these little waves, making sure it looked like they ricochet off of the landmass. I wasn't sure on the color choice, but using a green, a brown, and a blue, I laid down a greeny-browny mixture, and then highlighted the edges with a lighter blue. Went back through the middle with a brown, and this simulated depth. It dried pretty quickly on a hot day, and then I mixed together some glossy Modge Podge with a light bit of blue and began to lather it down on all of the surfaces. It dried relatively clear, and then I went back in with a white and highlighted the tops of the waves. This is where it really started to come together. I was really happy with how this looked. Finally, I went back over with just the glossy Modge Podge. As a first attempt, I was really happy with how this turned out. Let's take a look. Hey, you've made it to the end. I really appreciate you checking out my video. If this helped make your own, please share it on my Instagram down below. If there's anything in particular you want to see, please leave a comment, a like, and consider subscribing. As always, I'll see you on the next adventure.